The rain came down in sheets that November evening, each drop hitting the pavement like a tiny hammer driving home the weight of Marcus Webb's failures. He sat on the cold concrete steps of the shuttered community center, his eviction notice folded in his jacket pocket, his daughter's birthday just 3 days away, and exactly $17 to his name. At 42, he'd imagined his life would look different, successful, stable, the kind of father who could give his little girl the world. Instead, he was the kind of father who couldn't even keep a roof over her head. The street was empty except for one figure approaching through the rain, and Marcus almost didn't look up, almost didn't see her, almost missed the moment that would change everything. She couldn't have been more than 70, this woman walking toward him with an umbrella that had seen better days and a shopping cart rattling, with what looked like her entire life, packed inside plastic bags. Her coat was threadbare, her shoes held together with duct tape, and yet something about the way she moved spoke of dignity that poverty couldn't touch. Marcus expected her to pass by like everyone else did these days, averting their eyes from his obvious desperation. Instead, she stopped. "That's a hard rain," she said, her voice soft but steady. Marcus nodded, not trusting himself to speak. The kindness in her eyes was almost worse than indifference. It made him feel the full weight of how far he'd fallen. "You got somewhere to go when this lets up?" she asked. He shook his head and, to his horror, felt tears mixing with the rain on his face. "Lost my apartment. My daughter, she's with her mom right now. And I can't even—" His voice broke. "Her birthday's Friday. She's turning 8 and I've got nothing to give her. Nothing." The old woman was quiet for a moment, studying him with eyes that had clearly seen their share of storms. Then she did something unexpected. She sat down beside him on those wet steps, her shopping cart parked nearby, rain pattering on her umbrella. "My name's Dorothy," she said. "Dorothy Chen. And I want to tell you something true." "You've got more to give your daughter than you think." Marcus let out a bitter laugh. "Lady, I appreciate the sentiment, but I literally have $17 and nowhere to sleep tonight." Dorothy reached into one of her bags and pulled out a battered notebook. Its pages warped from moisture and age. "6 years ago, I was a high school English teacher. Had a nice house, a retirement plan, everything set up just right. Then my husband got sick. Cancer. The bills came faster than we could pay them. And when he died, I lost everything trying to save him." She opened the notebook, and Marcus saw page after page of careful handwriting. "These are stories. Stories about every person who showed me kindness when I hit bottom. The teenager who shared his lunch with me every Tuesday. The librarian who let me stay warm during business hours. The salon owner who gave me a haircut so I could go to job interviews looking presentable." "I don't understand," Marcus said. "This notebook is proof," Dorothy continued, "that even when you have nothing material, you can give someone something that matters. Attention, respect, hope." She looked at him intently. "Your daughter doesn't need expensive presents, Mr. Webb, Marcus Webb." "Mr. Webb, your daughter needs to know her father hasn't given up. That he's still fighting. That's the gift she needs." Something in Dorothy's words cracked open a space in Marcus's chest where despair had been building a fortress. "I've been so focused on what I can't give her that I haven't thought about what I can," he whispered. Dorothy smiled. "Now you're getting it. But here's what we're going to do. You're going to come with me to the shelter 3 blocks from here. I volunteer there Tuesday and Thursday evenings, helping in the kitchen. They've got a few beds left tonight, and I know the director. Tomorrow, you're going to call your daughter and tell her you love her. And on Friday, you're going to give her a birthday she'll never forget. Not because of what it costs, but because of what it means." Over the next 3 days, Marcus discovered that Dorothy Chen was something of a legend in the neighborhood. Despite living in a shelter herself, she spent every spare moment helping others. She introduced Marcus to Pastor Williams at the Unity Gospel Church, who had a connection with a construction company looking for workers. She walked with him to the interview, waited outside, and was there with a high five when he emerged with a promise of work starting Monday. But more than the practical help, Dorothy taught Marcus something essential about resilience. One evening, as they prepared food at the shelter, he asked her how she stayed so positive. "Oh, honey," she said, stirring a massive pot of soup, "I'm not positive all the time. Some nights I cry myself to sleep, missing my husband, mourning the life we had. But I learned something important. You can be sad about your circumstances without letting your circumstances define your worth. I'm not Dorothy who lost everything. I'm Dorothy who keeps loving people. That's who I choose to be. Friday arrived with clearer skies. Marcus had called Janelle, his daughter's mother, and explained his plan. She'd been skeptical at first. They'd divorced 2 years ago, and their relationship remained. Strained, but something in his voice must have convinced her. She agreed to bring Janelle to the park at 2 o'clock. Marcus arrived early, his hands shaking slightly as he set up his surprise. He'd used 10 of his $17 on supplies, poster board, markers, glue, and magazines from the dollar store. The remaining $7 bought the ingredients for his daughter's favorite sandwich, peanut, butter and strawberry, jam, and a single cupcake from the bakery. But the real gift was what he'd created with Dorothy's help over the past 3 nights, a handmade book called The Adventures of Janelle the Brave. Using the poster board, they'd constructed pages full of drawings and stories, tales of a courageous girl who faced dragons, her fear of the dark, rescued kingdoms, helped her friends, and discovered that her greatest power wasn't magic or strength, but her kind heart. On each page, Marcus had written things he loved about his daughter, lessons he wanted to teach her, dreams he had for her future. When Janelle arrived, running ahead of her mother as always, her face split into the widest smile Marcus had seen in months. "Daddy!" He caught her in a hug, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo, feeling her small arms tight around his neck. "Happy birthday, baby girl." They sat together on a park bench while Marcus presented his gifts. Janelle devoured the sandwich, made a wish, and blew out the single candle on the cupcake, with enough force to extinguish a bonfire. But when he gave her the handmade book, something magical happened. She turned each page slowly, running her fingers over the drawings, reading the words aloud in her careful second-grade voice. Janelle the Brave knew that being strong didn't mean never being scared. It meant being scared and doing the right thing anyway. She looked up at him, her eyes shining. "Did you make this, Daddy?" "Every word, every picture," he said, his throat tight. "This is the best present ever," she whispered, clutching the book to her chest. Marcus saw Janelle's mother, standing a respectful distance away, wipe at her eyes. Behind her, he noticed Dorothy had arrived, standing near a tree, watching with a smile. "Daddy," Janelle said suddenly, "why are you crying?" He laughed, brushing away tears he hadn't realized were falling. "Because I'm happy, sweetheart. Because you reminded me of something important. You know what you are. You're my hero." "I'm your hero?" Janelle giggled. "That's silly. You're the grown-up." "Being a grown-up doesn't mean you can't learn from kids," Marcus said. "You teach me about joy every day, about forgiveness, about loving people even when things are hard. That's what heroes do." After Janelle and her mother left, with promises that Marcus would pick her up next weekend now that he had work starting. Monday, he walked over to where Dorothy stood. "She loved it," he said simply. "Of course she did. It came from your heart." Dorothy patted his arm. "You did good, Marcus." "I couldn't have done it without you," he said. "You saved me, Dorothy. That night in the rain when you stopped and sat down next to me, you saved my life." Dorothy shook her head firmly. "No, baby. I didn't save you. I just reminded you of what you already had inside. That's what we do for each other when times are hard. We reflect back the light that people forget they're carrying." 3 months later, Marcus had saved enough from his construction job to move into a small studio apartment. It wasn't much, a single room with a kitchenette and a bathroom, but it was his, and more importantly, it meant Janelle could stay with him on weekends. The first thing he hung on the wall was a framed photograph. Dorothy and him at Janelle's birthday celebration in the park. He visited Dorothy every Thursday at the shelter, sometimes bringing groceries, sometimes just his time, always with gratitude. She'd added a new page to her notebook. He discovered a page about him, about a man who learned to measure wealth not by what he had, but by what he gave. One evening, as they were washing dishes side by side in the shelter kitchen, Dorothy said, "You know what I've been thinking? You should start your own notebook. Keep track of the good you see and do. Pass it on to Janelle someday." Marcus smiled. "I started one last week, actually." "Want to know what the first entry says?" "Tell me." "It says, Her name was Dorothy, and she taught me that kindness is the only currency that matters. She gave me hope when I had none. She saw worth in me when I couldn't see it in myself. She showed me that humanity's greatest power isn't in our wealth or success. It's in our willingness to sit down in the rain beside someone who's hurting and say, I see you. You matter. You're not alone. Dorothy's eyes filled with tears, and she wrapped her arms around him in a fierce hug. We save each other, she whispered. That's the secret. We just keep saving each other. And in that moment, in a shelter kitchen that smelled of dish soap and tomorrow's soup, Marcus Webb understood the truth she'd been teaching him all along. That human connection is the thread that holds the world together, that kindness is never wasted, and that sometimes the people with the least to give materially have the most to offer spiritually. Janelle's handmade birthday book sat on his shelf at home, next to a growing collection of his own. Notebooks, pages filling up with stories of second chances, small mercies, and the extraordinary power of ordinary people choosing to love each other through the hard times. Dorothy was right. They were both heroes. She was his, and somehow, miraculously, he'd become hers too. That's what she'd given him. This woman with the threadbare coat and the shopping cart full of plastic bags. Not charity, but dignity. Not pity, but partnership. Not a handout, but a hand held. She'd given him the greatest gift, one. Human can offer another, the reminder that no matter how far we fall, no matter how empty our pockets or how heavy our hearts, we are never too poor to be kind, never too broken to help someone else heal, never too lost to find our way back to what matters most. And what matters most, Marcus learned, is simply this, her. And him, and all of us stumbling through the rain together, stopping to sit down beside each other on cold concrete steps, sharing our umbrellas and our stories and our stubborn, defiant, beautiful hope that tomorrow can be better than today. That's humanity. That's the power we hold. That's the gift we give each other. One small act of courage and compassion at a time.